Welcome back to Stat 7 Sports. I am Contained Kunas, and we're back with the AFC free agency picture. As a couple days ago, I put out the NFC side, and we'll just go up over the other half, and with a few extra details added on. So we're back. Yes, hooray, we're back again with more NFL news. Just rinse and repeat, yes. Let's start with the AFC West, where you got the Chargers getting Brian Bulaga from the Packers for a 3-year, $30 million deal. You got Linval Joseph going from the Vikings, defensive tackle going from the Vikings to the Chargers, and then the offensive lineman trade between Russell Okung and Trey Turner, where both are former Pro Bowlers. Turner's a little younger, and Okung has a little bit less of Okung has a little more of a payroll cost. So I'm a little confused on that for Carolina Standard, but also Chargers get Chris Harris on a 2-year deal from the Broncos for $20 million total. Then with those Broncos, they traded from Jacksonville AJ Bouye, who's going to end up being their top cornerback, replacing Chris Harris. Getting Graham Glasgow from Detroit with a 4-year, $44 million deal to kind of shore up their offensive line to kind of help Drew Lock in his young career, especially the fact that they end up releasing Joe Flacco after he just failed his physical, which I don't know how he's getting the physical going on at this point, because I thought all physicals weren't going to be available. But I guess something that's in-house can still happen. Then, the Broncos get Melvin Gordon from the Chargers, 2-year, $60 million deal. Seems a little much for someone who was kind of the second-tier running back on the team, as Austin Eckler was definitely the starter for most of the year after Gordon did the holdout. Whenever he was trying to get like $12 million a year whenever he held out last year. He's only getting $8 a year, even with that $13.5 guaranteed. Then the Chiefs really didn't do much. The Super Bowl champs just franchised defensive end Chris Jones for $16.126 million, oddly specific, and really not much else. But the most active one in the AFC West was the Raiders. Nick Kwiatkowski, 3-year, $21 million deal from the Bears. Marcus Mariota they got from the Titans, as Tannehill got his big contract. Term for Mariota wasn't at this point stated. Then they get Corey Littleton on a 3-year, $36 million deal, linebacker from St. Louis, from the LA Rams. So amongst a lot of the kind of defensive blowout that they had to deal with, plus Todd Gurley. And Todd Gurley going to the Falcons at $1 year, $6 million deal. That's one little thing that had just happened since that deal. Since my previous NFC video. Then you get Jason Witten, who I did not see coming. I figured he was just going to either retire or just stay with the Cowboys. But a little 1-year deal with the Raiders. I guess he just wanted to go to Vegas. Malik Collins, also from the Cowboys, defensive tackle, also going on to Vegas. And Jeff Heath, also from the Cowboys. And Eli Apple from the Saints. Saints wanted to get rid of him, and they had Janoris Jenkins and Marshawn Lattimore, so you knew he was gone. Then, as the ones that everyone lost, Phillip Rivers going to the Colts, where that's kind of the first big news that ended up happening in the offseason, where you had Phillip Rivers saying that he wasn't going back to the Chargers, so some wheels had to be turned to where just kind of figure out the whole quarterback situation. Now, most of them have been figured out at this point. One thing that was interesting, I wouldn't normally put this for the fact that it's not really a major contract thing, but Derek Watt ended up joining his brother T.J. Watt in Pittsburgh, the Chargers fullback. But now with the Broncos, they lose their starting center to the Jets, but really they didn't lose much. They've got a lot of their same roster from last season. And the Chiefs, kind of the same way. they lost their outside linebacker slash DN kind of edge rusher Emmanuel Agba to the Dolphins. Kendall Fuller, one of their starting quarterbacks, went to the Redskins. And then the Raiders, they didn't. There's nothing of value that they lost. They just kept bringing people in. As of this point, there's not really any big name free agents that have come and gone. All kind of just the middling area. Now we go with the AFC North, which, yeah, a lot of things a little surprisingly went down. Bengals shored up their secondary with Trey Waynes, Mackenzie Alexander. So hopefully their secondary is a lot better than it was last year. Putting $14 million a year for Trey Waynes from Minnesota. And yeah, Mackenzie Alexander, $1 million for 1 year, $4 million deal. Not as much of a financial clog into their salary. Then they get DJ Reader, defensive tackle from the Texans, on a nice 4-year, $53 million deal. Then we go with the Browns, who they brought the big names on. Jack Conklin from the Giants, going to be probably their right tackle. Austin Hooper coming from Atlanta, trying to be the highest paid tight end, and nearly did so, but at $11 million a year. And then the Redskins had to get rid of a quarterback, so Case Keenum goes to the Browns to back up Baker Mayfield. The Ravens brought on a few big names with Michael Brockers and Calais Campbell to shore up their already strong defensive line. Brockers coming from the Rams, and they traded the Jaguars for only a 5th-round pick to get Calais Campbell, who was one of the top for Defensive Player of the Year only a couple years ago, and is still a very good defensive end. Steelers, they get Eric Ebron, tight end from the Colts, for a 1 year, $12 million deal. And in this rare circumstance, they traded with the Ravens, their most bitter rival. Well, okay. I would say them and the Bengals would be biggest rivals, but that was whenever Vontaze Burfict was there. Now since he's gone to the Raiders, yeah. He's traded Chris Wormley, a 7th-round pick, to Baltimore for a 5th-round pick. The name isn't too important, but it's interesting that they actually traded with each other, which hasn't happened since like 2004. Now, key losses for everyone. Darqueze Dennard was one of the cornerbacks that they replaced with Alexander and Trey Waynes. The Browns lost their starting outside linebacker, their starting middle linebacker, Joe Sherbert, who got like a 4-year, $53 million deal with the Jaguars. Christian Kirksey also went to the Packers, another linebacker. Ravens lost Michael Pierce to the Vikings, and they replaced it twofold with Michael Brockers, and with Brockers to replace him, former LSU 1st-round pick. Then the Steelers, the only thing they lost was Jason Hargrave to the Eagles. That was a 3-year, $39 million deal. Now we go with the AFC East, where there's a lot of news going on with it, to where mostly going on with the Patriots, where, well, not really anything signing-wise. They kind of just got a few re-signees with Devin McCourty and one of their defensive tackles, Bo Allen. But they lost a bunch. I'll talk about it in a second. Bills had the big deal getting Stephon Diggs. Yes, they had to give up a 1st-round pick for him, but for the fact of being able to get another weapon for Josh Allen, whenever they really didn't have a true number one, you could say John Brown was, but having John Brown, Cole Beasley, and Stephon Diggs as your top 3, that's going to be pretty damn solid. But they grabbed Mario Addison with a little more than $10 million a year, and Josh Norman from the Redskins, even though he had one of his worst years last year as a pro. Now, the Dolphins were one of the busiest ones, put the most money on it. mainly to Byron Jones to get him away from Dallas for a 5-year, $82.5 million deal. But they shored up a lot of their defense, getting Shaq Lawson, 3-year, $30 million, and Kyle Van Noy from the rival Patriots, 4-year, $51 million. Then they're still a very young team, so they have to build up some veteran presence, as they did a bunch of trading off last season and just building up on draft capital. And all the Jets did so far was build up their offensive line. And really, Bills kind of lost a couple D linemen, Shaq Lawson, Jordan Phillips. Dolphins hadn't lost anything of importance because they already lost everyone of importance last year outside of a very insignificant amount of names. The Jets haven't technically lost anyone yet, but Robbie Anderson probably isn't planning on re-signing with him, so he's kind of waiting out the wide receiver market, and which has been relatively slow with a couple exceptions, and trying to see what's going to happen with all the draft wide receivers. Now, the Patriots, they lost a bunch of big names. Of course, Brady, which I know I said it's not like he was going to get $30 million a year. Now, he could get as much as $30 a year, so he could have like a 2-year, $60 million deal, but that's with incentives. But by the base deal, he got the same deal as Drew Brees, also in his division now. But on defense, they lose defensive tackle Danny Shelton to a two-year $8 million deal with the Lions. Jamie Collins, 3-year $30 to the Lions as well. And as earlier stated, Kyle Van Noy going to the Dolphins. So their top defense from last year is taking a hit because people had to get paid. Like, yes, they keep McCourty, but their linebackers take a hit, and their D-line takes a hit. Now, AFC South is kind of some of the most interesting content off of this. Now, Colts trade their top pick, which a lot of people thought they might have considered going after a future quarterback to replace Jacoby Brissett. And then they get DeForest Buckner from the 49ers. And to replace the potential of that, they get a 1-year $25 million deal with Philip Rivers. And trying to sustain their offensive line with Anthony Castone's a 2-year $33 million. So building up both their lines and trying to try to protect their new quarterback Philip Rivers. Then Jaguars kind of slacked on the defense the last couple seasons ever since Jalen Ramsey had left to the Rams. So they grabbed Darqueze Dennard from the Bengals, and they grabbed Joe Schobert with a nice contract for him. I said that wrong. 5-year, $53 million deal. Now, the Texans, what the hell are you thinking, Bill O'Brien? They make Bill O'Brien GM as well as coach, and this is the first big deal that happens. First time you'll be able to do any sort of legal tampering on it, you trade for David Johnson, who is a washed-up running back near his 30, and he was the backup to Kenyon Drake last year, and year before they're trying to find a replacement for him, and nobody could fill the void off of it. So, not only that, their main replacement on him so far has been Randall Cobb. The first wide receiver really off the board in free agency. At $9 million a year, he's at best the number 2. Like, yes, I see you have Will Fuller. You're basically having to require Deshaun Watson to take Will Fuller as your number 1 to replace DeAndre Hopkins. All that production from Hopkins, I don't think the Texans are going the cellar on this, but now I'm thinking it's a 2-team race between the Colts and the Titans. Although, speaking of the Titans, and Bradley Roby gets a deal as well, $12 million a year. Titans pay Tannehill for completing over 100 yards passing in one playoff game. Just think about this. Not only that, Tannehill gets, 4 years is a long-term deal at this point. Not only does he get a big deal, nearly $30 million a year, they franchised Derrick Henry, the cornerstone of the entire team that year or last year. They would have not won a single game in the playoffs if not for him. Brady may still be with the Patriots. There are so many things that would not have happened this offseason if Derrick Henry was not as much of a beast as he was in these playoffs. And he really wouldn't. Honestly, I think the AFC Championship game would have been more of a battle if they didn't give up. If the Titans didn't give up on the run with Henry in the second half. Yes, Mahomes probably would have still won the Super Bowl with that, but it would have still been maybe like a one possession, maybe 10-point win instead of what it was. And then on the good news off of it, I'm a little surprised, but Vic Beasley goes on a 1-year deal at $9.5 million. The pass rusher from the Falcons. I'm guessing that this is going to be kind of a prove-it deal for him, where it's like he was expecting more, but I know he's had injuries with the Falcons, and so is the rest of the defense, but $9.5 million for a year, and this is his first contract since his rookie deal, so I can see him getting something a bit more substantial this year. Following this year. Although, honestly, now that I think about it, not too many people outside the few quarterbacks really got that big of deals. There's with a few exceptions. Now with lost property for each of these, it's like Eric Ebron goes to the Steelers for a $12 million deal, which I was stunned by. I didn't think he would go for that much. Because outside the last year with Andrew Luck and some of this year with Jacoby Brissett, he was not. Like, he used to be a first-round pick for the Lions. He has not built up to the top 10 pick that he was drafted as. Then the Jaguars, they really didn't lose anybody. I really wasn't going to comment on it, but the Seahawks kind of go after kind of the middling route. The middling tier offensive lineman to protect Russell Wilson, and Cedric Ogbuehi is just another one of that example. Now, Texans, they lost DJ Reader to the Bengals. Not really much else outside of the big deal of losing, at worst, a top 3 receiver in the NFL. The other two being Julio Jones and Michael Thomas. That's your top 3, no questions asked. You can argue with me on that. If you have any other exceptions, you can argue me on it. Now, Jack Conklin goes from the Titans to the Browns. And they lose Marcus Mariota, who lost his job halfway into Tannehill. And at this point, you just gotta wonder: is the Raiders sold on Mariota being the backup, or are they trying to get him to challenge Derek Carr? Even though Carr actually had his statistically best year as a pro, he's been getting kind of consistently a little bit better. But now that is everyone in the AFC. Now, with that being said, of course, the biggest news was being the DeAndre Hopkins news, and just a couple other trades off of it. Tannehill getting his big deal. Brady going to the Bucks. If you do have any other deals I'm not aware of off of it, please let me know. Now, on last second Saints news, I know I didn't post this on the last one, but yeah, Andres Pete just got paid, which no one expected him to actually stay, but he got a 5-year, $57 million deal to stay with the Saints as their starting left guard. If you end up hearing by time that ended up going from the Eagles to the Lions, the Eagles starting guard, he got 5 years and $50 million. Pete was thought to be kind of around that same range, but he was also like a top 5 like overall money payment from anyone in this free agency. But I'm I'm a little surprised by the quantity per year. And yes, he's still fairly young. This is his first contract since his rookie deal. But getting over $10 million a year, that seems a bit steep for someone who, from the media, it sounded like the Saints were fine with getting rid of and trying to get Nick Easton and replace them instead, or drafting someone. But with someone who's a guard tackle combination, I can see a little bit more of the appeal because Teron Armstead would get hurt every so often. But with that being said, this is the end of the early free agency point. There's not too many big names left. At this point, there's like Emmanuel Sanders, there's Jadeveon Clowney, and a few others named like Robbie Anderson. But if you like this video, please like, subscribe, please share this out to more people. I'll see whatever content I can make off of this just to kind of fit with the times. If you have any more suggestions, let me know. But with that being said, I am Katain Kunas. This is Stat7 Sports, and I'll see y'all next time.